starting to see albatross. We're very much in the south, and that is the experience that so many of the sailors came for. Charlie Dallin is well clear now. He is over 300 miles clear, and the good news is we're going to see the biggest group, 18 boats within 966 miles, the biggest group in the history of the Vendée Globe racing in the south. Meantime, we are still waiting to hear news from Alex Thompson's team from Hugo Boss. We know that Alex damaged his rudder yesterday evening, and we are still waiting for an update on that situation, and if it comes during the programme, then we will give you that news. Our guest today is in Auckland, New Zealand, Guillaume Verdier, taking time out from his schedule down there. He is, of course, the designer of the top two boats in the race at the moment, LinkedOut and Apivia. Apivia, the project which he worked with Merconcept, with Francois Gabar's team, and of course also Dallin is a naval architect in his own right. So we'll join Guillaume in just a few seconds, but let's first of all look at the classements, the standings at this midday. And indeed, Charlie Dallin is 296 miles ahead of Thomas Riong just now, a small gain from Riong over the course of the morning. But John Le Cam still going well in third, making between 14 and 15 knots. He is 360 miles behind the leader, still up in the north of the fleet, but going pretty well and largely holding his own on that older boat. Kevin Escoffi now up to fourth. He's 7 miles ahead of Yannick Besteven. These two having a nice little match race, as we're seeing through the fleet in general. Yannick Besteven, as I say, in fifth. Louis Burton is up to sixth now. He's about 20 miles or so ahead of Boris Herrmann. Boris Herrmann's going well. He is almost on the same mileage as Sébastien Simon. Boris is on 441 and Sébastien Simon on 442, and he is 102 miles ahead of Sam Davis. And then Damien Seguin going really nicely, very, very quick for an older boat with no foils. He's doing 21.7 knots this morning, and he's in 10th place. Giancarlo Pedotti is also going well. His boat is the former boat of Jean-Pierre Dick, the foiling boat, and he's going well in 11th. Moving down, as I said, Alex Thompson losing quite a lot of miles overnight. He's down in 15th. He's now 703 miles behind the leader, and he was still doing 11 knots this morning. And then in terms of the internationals, well, Switzerland's Alan Rura is in 18th, going pretty steadily. I say he's at 966 miles behind the lead, but still in a nice group of boats chasing Clarice Kramer. On the next page of the standings, then we see Didac Costa in 22nd. Further down, he is still gaining a little bit of distance on Pip Hare, old rivals. Then next down is Miranda Merrin in 28th. Ari Husela 29th. They're quite close again in terms of distance to the finish. And then down in 31st place, then we have Kojiro Shiraishi. He's doing 11.6 knots. He's in great form, as we saw yesterday as he came across the equator on DMG Morai Global. And of course, he is chasing Sebastian Destremo. So that's the standings this midday on the rankings. Charlie Dallin then with that big lead. And today we're joined by Guillaume Verdier. Guillaume is in Auckland, New Zealand. It looks like to be a beautiful sunny evening there. He's there as a designer with Emirates Team New Zealand. And of course, the designer of the two top boats, LinkedOut and Apivia. Guillaume, a fantastic race so far and great for you guys with the top two boats.
Yes, we are super pleased with me and all the teams working together with me in France. 10 people, 11 people, if we take this work in some other parts, plus those in Auckland, and we are super pleased. There's always, a lot of unknowns, and competition is as well in architecture. So we had no idea where it will go, and there's a lot that will go on, so we have to be very patient, but the sailors are really doing well at the moment. It was a bit nervous with the period, but it's the same for the sailor.
Tell us about the problems with LinkedOut. How much is the boat actually compromised without the port foil?
Well, there's been a big noise, and when he's been sailing on deep on at what we call the neutral axis, so mid thickness of the boat. We evaluated to be mid-thickness of the board in the shaft, not the tip, probably not the elbow, or maybe a little bit in the elbow. We don't know so much. You don't see anything from outside, so the board looked perfect. We understood that it was damaged because there was a bit of a dark place. So we don't know so well how far it's broken, but we don't feel like let Thomas go in the south. We know it's probably a board that if it breaks, the danger would be to break in between the two bearings, the two supports of the board, and make a damage inside the boat. So just to make sure it's not going crazy, we push him to cut half of the board, 50% of the board. And this is the side of the boat where it's not so useful for the Vendée Globe. And we calculated how much we lose on this board, on this side with the boat, and it's actually not crazy. So it was we thought a reasonable compromise. And if he has to remove it completely off the boat, it will be easier with a smaller boat. So that's why we took.
What's the percentage of loss on that on the starboard tack then with the port foil?
In terms of performance, you mean? Well, it's downwind. It won't affect too much because you can still use it. So it will lose quite a bit upwind. Instead of going to 11.5 or 12 knots, if you go tight upwind, you probably lose a knot on that side. And when you're at 50 degrees of the wind, you will lose a bit more. But it's the compromise we found. So it's all right. Reaching, you will lose a little. Yeah.
And say the two boats, Apivia and LinkedOut, what's the difference between them in simple terms?
So LinkedOut is a derivative of the huge work we did for the Volvo Ocean Race. It was supposed to be the Volvo Ocean Race boat, and we adapted it to Thomas with a cockpit and so on. It's more of a reaching boat, a little bit more reaching, very high performance reaching upwind. Apivia is slightly more all-round performance, I'd say. But the sail plans are quite different, on the two boats. LinkedOut is a little more, there's a little less fathead sail at the top, and we'll have more aspect ratio in the sails, I'd say, and quite an efficient sail for standard.
And tell us what it's been like working with Charlie Dallin, who's of course a naval architect trained in Southampton like yourself. What's he like as a project manager, or as part of the key part of the project?
Well, it was super cool because first we got on really, really well. All the team working with me all the team working with him on himself, and we don't have any certitude. We are not sure of anything, so we keep on asking ourselves questions. And there was a good, mutual understanding of what we don't understand or what is to be understood. And he kept questioning me, and I tried to answer him, and he would sometimes say, "Okay, maybe don't you think we should dig a little bit more here and there?" And he very very gentle in his way of asking questions, and very humble and not stupid criticism. It was very, very interesting to work with him.
And so it's no surprise to see him out in front then?
No, I'm not at all. No, I'm not. He's a very, very smart sailor, and look, the team around him with massive and all the guys, we know them very well. They are extremely talented group of people. So it's even so is a bit new in going around the world single-handed. He's been extremely well trained. The reason why he was in this team is because he was seen as a top sailor. So, and Thomas, is extremely fit at sea. Is one of the only sailor I know that never, ever be sick at sea, and is in such a good sportive condition and good shape. You saw he climbed 3-4 times up the mast. So after he climbed up the mast, he went cutting his foil, and he's got such an energy. It's incredible.
Okay, Guillaume, just bear with us 1 minute. We're just going to have a look at the weather as it stands just now. And looking then at the weather this Saturday, first of all, at the front of the fleet, we're looking mainly at this low pressure system down here, which is rolling through. Very classical situation of the train of low pressures moving to the east, and this it really is a nice ride for the boats at the front of the low pressure. Principally Sam Davis and Louis Burton in the best position, closest to the front. Apivia not quite so favourably positioned. They're well forward of the front, not having quite as much breeze, and we are expecting to see a little bit of compression. Meantime, Jean Le Cam further up to the north and east. Now, we did think he would struggle perhaps a little bit, but actually the high is moving east, and he's in the back of the high, and so he's actually having quite favourable conditions. Now, I don't know whether that's programmed or whether that's just down to experience. But really what we do have is we have a really nice big group of boats coming down into the south. I think it's 18 boats and something like 1,000 miles, which is pretty much unprecedented for the Vendée Globe. Looking a little bit further back up the track, well, it's all good down to the east coast of Brazil in the trade winds. This group here coming in, they're routing a little bit more to the east and will come round the outside of this high and pick up a low pressure, which is looking quite strong. And then further back up the track, we see Charal still struggling in the doldrums, Jeremy Bayou, but the outlook for him in the longer term future down the South Atlantic is actually looking quite favourable, possibly getting to cut a large number of miles off round the St Helena High. So that's the forecast for the situation this morning. Looking a little bit more detail, just seeing the circulation round the low pressures. It's northwesterly at the front of the low, westerly and then southwesterly. So the classical low pressure in the south. Angles not so brilliant for, as I say, for Apivia, for Charlie Dallin. We are seeing a little bit of compression. He's not going to have quite the breeze that the boats behind are having. At the moment, we know they've got 20 to 25 knots, the likes of Maitre Coq. We spoke with Yannick Bestaven this morning. He was in 20, 25 knots of breeze. So that's the forecast. And then a little bit more detail. This is tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. You can see the low is moving east, and I say lighter conditions for Charlie Dallin and these boats here in the southwesterly now. So now if we run the animation, you can just see this low rolling through. You can see the front here, and then they'll come into the southwesterly. And we're looking at Apivia here, having to come up quite far to the north, and then we'll jibe and come back down. You can watch that separation there. Not routing all the boats. We're not allowed to route all the boats because there's this very, very strict rules on outside assistance. If we route all the boats, then believe it or not, that would be considered to be outside assistance. So there we go, and then as I say, the second low rolling through, which some of the back markers or the back of the middle of the fleet should catch up with. So that's the weather, looking reasonably favourable, but a nice low pressure for the second group, the peloton to ride. So back with Guillaume Verdier in Auckland. Guillaume, where are we with foils in the IMOCA class? Where do we go next, and where are we at the moment?
So the IMOCA class, for reasons of, the IMOCA class is 30 boats, 35 boats. It's a very democratic class where people vote, and you will have some old boats. Most of the boats will be old, and they will, not all of them have foils. So it's going to take time before we go directly from the having elevators behind on the rudders on fully foiling boats, because some boats cannot afford to do that. And because it's a democratic boat where people raise their hands on go for it, most people will be a bit reluctant to go too far in technology too fast. And so it will take a bit of time. Next time for the Vendée Globe, there will still be no elevators on the rudders. From an architecture point of view, it's a bit of a shame because it's like flying a plane without a tail wing. I always say that. But the reason why it's like that is because it's very democratic and people cannot necessarily afford to make such a big jump technologically so fast. So it's going to take a bit of time, and we have to accept it. For us, we play the game. It will also avoid that it gives a chance that we take some old boats, refurbish them, try to make them in the semi-foiling. And look, that's what Samantha Davis did. And that was one of my most pleasant projects, to push Samantha in the upper front with a foil. And it's been very interesting. I think in the IMOCA class, there's a lot of, good old boats that are to come to nearly the top. And this is where we have to go today, stop wasting too much money and take care of the old boats and push them. They last long.
They do. I mean, we can see that just now. The top 10 boats, a lot of them are the slightly older generation boats with a little bit more reliability.
Well, exactly. Well, you can see that many of the old boats, they have no issues at all because they're all the issues in the last 4 or 6 years. So they fix them on slowly. They become super reliable and perfect to do single-handed round the world.
Now tell us about the situation with the America's Cup. Will we see some foiling technology or hardware trickling down into the IMOCA class?
Oh yes, it's all going to go to the IMOCA class slowly. I mean, all the software technology is already there. It's all on the table, and we have a particularity on the America's Cup. We have trim tabs a little bit. We have foils with flap like on the wing of a plane. I push to introduce that because it's easier to move a flap than moving the full foil. It's less energy to do that, and it allows better control system. So are we going to see this kind of foils in the IMOCA class? It's possible. It's going to take a bit of time, but we actually have bigger aspect ratio foils, so longer span foils in the IMOCA class at the moment. It's not too bad what we have. Nothing to complain. It's probably more on the sail on rig that there will be some huge improvements in the future.
And talking about the Cup, how do you feel about the way the Cup is shaping up with the defenders? You've seen all of the other boats, all of the challengers' boats. You've launched your second boat. How do you feel in terms of the possibility of defending?
I'm strictly not allowed to talk about that. They are very, very strict on me not to speak about that. But it's very interesting to see them selling all the time. And it's like last time in Bermuda, you've got to be very careful because they improve at a spectacular speed. The rate at which they improve is incredible. And within 1 week to another, it can change dramatically. So the opinion you can have on a challenger, last week can be totally different next week. They've got huge resources to save their position, and with the money they invest to challenge us, they will certainly not drop the effort now. They are right into the effort, and they've got a bit of time to go through. Remember that one thing they can do is to change 20% of the weight of the foil. It's quite a bit you can do.
Now listen, Guillaume, thank you so much for joining us this evening in Auckland, this morning in Les Sables d'Olonne. Have a good evening.
Thanks a lot, Andy. It's a pleasure. And yeah, we can talk again later when you feel.
That's Guillaume Verdier there in Auckland, interrupting his evening to join us here in Les Sables d'Olonne. Now, Giancarlo Pedotti, he's been going particularly well on the Prysmian Group. We spoke with him this morning, and this is Giancarlo Pedotti on Prysmian Group.
It's incredible to see the albatross that fly around my boat. It's like a dance. His fly is spectacular, and so it's very interesting to see for me these aspects, the nature in this place of the world where I have never been before. I'm happy. The race is long. We are just in the start. I think that after in the Indian Ocean, we find condition a little bit stronger. But in any case, I'm happy. I try to push a little bit more to join the group in front of me, and then we'll see. Everything is good. My boat is in great condition. Right now, I'm in the north of the fleet, where I think I have a little bit less of wind. But I think that in the next few hours, the wind coming, and I hope to keep again an interesting speed.
So Giancarlo Pedotti in the thick of battle in the Southern Ocean, in a good group of boats and going well. Also going well nearer the front of the fleet, I think in 7th, is Boris Herrmann, our German skipper on Sea Explorer, Yacht Club de Monaco, and as ever sending some great videos.
Look at this evening sky. We are in higher latitudes now. In the tropics it would be pitch black dark in here. Fantastic evening sky. What a beautiful evening. We are small Janaco now, and all the stack is in the back. And we have a full moon, a pretty full moon. Look here.
So Boris Herrmann there, almost making the nights in the Southern Ocean look alluring. Now that's all we have time for today. So far, no news yet from Hugo Boss from Alex Thompson Racing Team. If there's anything comes up, we'll post it on our social media or indeed on the website. So join us tomorrow. Our guest will be Christopher Pratt, co-skipper with Jeremy Bayou on Chiral and the Transat Jacques Vabre. And Chris has got aspirations to do the Vendée Globe himself. So join us then. In the meantime, we'll leave you with Sam Davis enjoying the South.
So I'm just doing the stack.